Maister Reginald's Courtship by J. Marshall Mather. Old Harry followed no sequence in his narrations. He spake as the spirit moved him, and the spirit was whimsical in its choice. 40 years with the old man were but as yesterday, and from telling a story in which the young Maisters, as he called them, played their part, he would follow on with one about their grandfathers, the original founders of the firm. This was confusing to me. I could not disentangle the incidents told so as to duly arrange them in my own mind. Hence I determined to ask him to outline the pedigree of the family, that I might know them in their order of age, and secure that perspective without which I was left in hopeless confusion. "Boy and man," said he, in reply to my question, "I've worked for 3 lots of 'em, Thowdens, the young uns, and the young uns' sons, and I've done me duty by them, and I cannot say but what they've done their duty by me and all." "Who were the original founders of the firm?" I asked. "Michael and Jonas," was his reply, "and Michael had lasses and Jonas lads. The lasses were soon piped up, for they were Greylians, with plenty of brass, but Jonas's stock stopped to home and worked the factory. 2 on 'em died, Jimmy and Ernest, and Reginald and Frank lived and geet wed, but no bud Frank had childer. Reginald seems to have been a favourite with all, for the people still talk about him, although he has been long dead," I said, anxious to encourage the old man in his recountings of the past. "Yai," was his reply, "Reginald were a grand mon, he were for sure. There were nobody but had a good word for him, like as he were one of our own, and if the truth mun be spoken, he wed one of our own, and who never shamed him neither." "I understand you to mean that he married one of his own work people?" "Yai, a factory lass, but who were a lady for all that, and I did my share in job and all, not but what I were asked, for I were never a chap to meddle with what didn't belong to me, but I could never say nay to Maister Reginald, though this time it welly cost me shop." The old man wiped his face with the wad of cotton waste he always carried ready to hand, then, as was his wont, slowly filled and lighted his pipe, in silence waiting for the vanished forms that ever peopled the blue wreaths ascending in these moods of indulgence. "Her name was Bella," he continued. "Bonnie Bella we used to call her, and the name fitted her and all. In those days lasses used to wear curls, ringlets, you know, and hers hung in black clusters round her neck and shoulders as white as blossoms in May. Who'd a wicked he and all, but it were the wickedness of mischief and not malice, and who were as lithe in her step as a colt. Well, as you may suppose, there weren't a single chap in factory but wanted her, and for that matter, some at weddings wouldn't let her alone. But who knew how to take care of herself, and when her were fairly roused, there weren't many but kept out of her gate. I knew as Maister Reginald were sweet on lass, for he told me as much. 'Harry,' he says one afternoon, as the mill were losing, and thorns were crossing factory yard, and her among them, 'Harry, yon lass were made for summat better nor a loom.' 'Who's better at loom nor in mischief?' I said, 'the same as some of your young chaps would lead her.' Well, see ya, he turned on me like a demon. 'By Guy,' he shouted, 'if thou talks to me like that, Harry, I'll pitch thee down in fire oil. Dost thou think I mean Bella any ill?' 'That doesn't mean any, I know, but the best on us does things as we don't mean,' and I shoot myself loose for his grip, for he were holding me like a vice. 'I mean to mak' her a lady, Harry,' he whispered, 'and give her her name, as neither her nor onybody else need be ashamed on.' And the lad did, as you'll hear, though it were noan such easy work. At that time there were a chap waving in the shed that went by the name of Stand at Ease. He'd been in regulars, and were lazy and all, so that were how he come to get his name. He were a forrard sort of a chap, and always out a persecuting or insulting lasses, and no one of 'em were safe where he come. Well, one night, there were as laid a bet at the Sheaf and Sickle, at Stand at Ease daren't kiss Bella afore wavers in the shed, and as you'll hear, he were no one slow to tag it and to shop hisself for the winning on it. I happened to be in public house myself at time, and as I met Maister Reginald as I were coming home, I told him of the little game at Stand at Ease were bound to play. He didn't say no, but he thought alt more. The next morning, he were there before the shed started, fixing himself in a place where he could see everybody, but couldn't be seen himself. Up to breakfast how now it happened, but about 10 o'clock Stand at Ease began a making tracks for Bella's looms. But Maister Reginald were as sharp as he were, and when the posts were raising his hands to prove Bella's curls, and Mac could turn her face up from warp o'er which she was stooping, Maister Reginald seized him from behind, and threw him face downwards on thally floor, calling him a varmin, and telling him to walk hisself away, and never darken the shed no more. They say courting starts with accidents. On he rode the row in the waving shed brought young folk a deal more together, and wherefore there been nobody a bit of talk about them, their names were nigh in everybody's mouth. At first folks said Maister Reginald meant no, but I knew better, and there were as blamed girl, and said who'd gone after him and were forrard like, but that were false, as all knew her best. They both on 'em aboon a few as wished them onything but weal, the lasses being spiteful like, and the young Maister's relations put out wi' his pairing with a factory lass. But if you want to mak onything go in love line, set again it. It gains motion by resistance, as they say. Try and blow fire out, and you'll end by blowing it breater. Let it alone, says I, and it'll die of itself. Leastways, that's as I reads lads and lasses. Not as it would have been so with Maister Reginald, for his mind were made up, and he bred off them that never changed. But th' opposition made the lad a deal more open, and as for the lass, it made a woman of her. The first they had to get over to their side were Bella's mother, Martha, who were cowed, and who were a Methody, a straight Bapton and all, who were great at the class meeting and the prayer meeting, and were never known to miss Sunday school. Aye, were. When Maister Reginald called to ask her about th' engagement, for he were a gentleman, th' old lass said as who might mak it a matter of prayer, and so who did, but like as who didn't get an answer to suit her mind, as who said who didn't wish to stand in lass's gate, and yet who were afraid that Maister Reginald might be up to some marlock or other, as lads were no bud lads. So he made up a mind to go to parson, superintendo as they call him, and ask him what he might do. Well, he says, my good woman, the law and the testament is plain. It says that we munnot be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. And then he told her, as Maister Reginald were not a professor, he were known a fit husband for a woman as were a member of society like their Bella. If the old job had stopped there, it would have been all right, but he spiced his spiritual advice with a bit of the priest, saying, as if even Maister Reginald had been a professor, he were no sort for the likes of Bella, as he belonged to another order. And what order does our Bella belong to, I'd like to know, asked Martha. To lower orders, replied the parson, for he were one at Thowd school. Then the Thowd woman's pride get the better of her Methodism. Lower orders, who shouted. I'd have you know our Bella comes of as good a breed as Maister Reginald. There's no but a generation between his lot and ours, for his grandfather and Bella's both fotched their own walks and carried their own pieces in thousan' days, and that's not so long sin. Then the parson talks her about the evils of pride, telling her it were a sin to look higher nor her station. But it were all no use. Who could preach a deal more powerful nor he could, and a deal better doctrine and all. It's such as you, who says, as is afraid of your order. I rests on my character and I'm content. And th' old woman stumped out at parson's house and left him fair gloppened, and after that Martha said that if Maister Reginald were Janet, they might keep company, and they did. But there were a deal of bother with his own relations. Th' uncles, th' aunts, the cousins, and everybody as could claim to be onything to him, set their tongues wagging all round countryside. Dear, how soon folk forget the pit they'd been digged out on. There weren't one of 'em had a grandfather as were aught. 2 or 3 of the young lady teachers at Sunday school, and were akin to Maister Reginald, sent in their resignations because Bella were a teacher and all. You're a man of larning. Can you tell me how it is that brass divides folk so? I can't, but it is so. Talk about the root of all evil. It plays the dirl wherever it can get with its cloven foot. I will say this for th' old Maister. He were about the most reasonable lot, but then he were always a philosopher. He were talking to me one night, and he says, Harry, my lad, Reginald shall go his own gait. It's not me he's to mak happy, it's hisself. I could ha' liked him to ha' looked elsewhere, but I'm noan going to look for him, nor square is he unto my liking. I never asked onybody who I were to wed, and the lad ought to have as much sense as his feyther. Yes, I said, the man who could talk like that was a philosopher. It was sane reasoning. I don't wonder that he made his way in the world, nor do I wonder that you were so attached to him. Old Harry was silent, sitting chin in hand and meditatively drawing at his pipe, and little conscious of the strange page of life he was opening to me in his reminiscence of a love story, none the less romantic because it was a love story of everyday life. The wind blew in through the open arches of the boiler-house, bearing on its aerial wings the shouts of children and the voices of those who were idling in the evening hour. The farewell tints of the sun glowed behind the summits of the distant hills, leaving a blood-red track across the sluggish waters of the lodge and the turbid stream that ran below. Beyond, in the dotted meadows, where the new-mown hay sent up its odorous offering and scattered trees began to cast a darker shadow, wandered youth in the first blush of its romance, living over again the lot of Reginald and Bella, and keeping the world young with the old, yet ever perennial story of the heart. To me, if not to old Harry, even in this prosaic centre of toil, and surrounded by the commonplace of labour, the hour was as the even song of ardent passion and of holy fire. In a little while the old man recommenced. It were his mother at were stickler, and there were folk as said who'd never give way. If who hadn't, I don't know what Reginald would ha' done, for there were no measuring the length of his love towards his mother, though there were no mistaking his love for Bella come first. But yet no, he were his mother's favourite, the apple of her e'en, as they say, and who'd fair set her mind on his marrying a lady. Well, you know what it is when a woman makes up her mind. 1,000 horsepower isn't in it, where the moving of her is concerned, and much as who loved Reginald, who wouldn't bear on him marrying Bella, and happen who were the stronger because of her love. At first who tried to force him, but he were of the same stock as who come herself. He were his mother o'er again, and who fun herself matched again herself in the shape of her lad. Then who tries shaming on him, and telling him, who would ask Bella up to Thall when the grown ladies were there, and mak him blush when he seed how they laughed at the way who would eat and speak. But Reginald stuck to Bella. Well, this sort of thing went on for 2 year, Bella being the one skeleton in the household cupboard, the flea in th' ointment pot. Mitch as the mother and son loved one another, neither on 'em would give in, the mother saying who loved her son too weel, and the son saying the same about Bella. One Sunday afternoon, when th' old woman were too weak to go out, and sitting with Bible open before her, Reginald waited to come into the room. He seed as who were failing, as he'd never seed it afore, and there were tears in her een and all. "Mother," he says, "what ails you?" And then he stooped down and kissed the wet away as were trickling down her fading cheeks. "Sit thee down," who says, "I want to talk with thee. Thou knows thou were always thy mother's favourite. 2 of you lie under t' sod, and you've a brother living, and God knows, you're all your mother's pride, but like as I always took to thee. I could talk to thee as I couldn't talk to t'others, and if the truth mun be told, I prayed more for thee and all. Thou'rt my first thoughts on wakening, and I always see thee when I close my e'en to sleep. Happen I've been sinful, and the Lord's punishing me." And then Maister Reginald told me at th' old woman brast into tears, and I had to choke hisself to keep from joining her. Then who looked up in his face and called him Reggie, a name as he said who hadn't called him by sin he were a lad. "There's a thorn in my pillow, Reggie, and I can't lie easy." But he never said nowt, but stared at carpet and trembled, for he knew what were coming next. "Reggie," who said, "nearly down as they used to," and he were a child once more kneeling by her side. Then who ran her lean fingers through his ear and played with it as who did when he were a lad. "Reggie," who sobbed fit to break her heart, "wilt ta tap my thorn away?" At first he said no, for he knew he couldn't do it, about driving a thorn into somebody else's heart, as dear to him as his mother. Then he turned to th' old lass and said, "Mother, as wed where I love, my word's spoken, and my heart's wi' my word." Then who pooed herself together, and th' old e'en that blinked with tears flashed fire, as who said, "Then thou'll ne'er have my blessing." He come to th' engine house the same night, and telled me word for word all that had been said. "Harry," he says, "it's a crossfire when a man's between his mother and the lass he loves." As the autumn passed and the night stole big slices out of the afternoons, th' old woman grew weaker and weaker, but though who'd all as heart could wish for, th' old smile of contentment, which used to crown her like a queen, were gone. Then, as who said, who'd a thorn in her pillow, who wanted to be right with her lad, but no, the ruling spirit was strong in death, who'd have her own way, or no way at all. The weakness of the body couldn't shake the proud old heart. One night, however, who had a dream, and in morning, who sent for Reginald, and said he mun bring Bella with him, so as who could see her afore who died. At first the lass weren't for going, and no wonder, but when who knew it were to satisfy a dying woman, who smothered her pride, and let Maister Reginald tak her. Bella had never been in such a chamber afore, a big room with a big bed all hung with curtains, where th' old woman were lying down, with her nurse by her side, and a Bible open at her elbow on t' table. At first nobody spoke, then who beckoned Bella to stand in sunlight, where who could get a fair look at her. "Thou'rt a lass any monk would be proud on," said th' old woman, with a quaver in her voice, "and if thou'sn't getting brass, thou's getting goodness, for I can read it in thy face." Then who turned to Reginald and said, "Thou'll be good to her, Reggie, I know, For him has been true to his mother, is like to be true to his wife. Then who raised herself up in bed, and them as were there tell us a strange leak come into her ear, and who said, Childer, join hands o'er your mother. And when they did as who telled 'em, who laid her wasted hand in theirs, and closed in her ear and said, What God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. And them were the last words who ever spoke, and Noah never did put 'em asunder but death. And if you'll climb Chapel Hill and read their tombstones, you'll find how it says, They were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided.